The wind moved across the Nevada desert like a restless animal. The sand carried heat from the day and silence from the night. Ethan Cross sat on the porch of his small cabin, listening to the soft hum of the windmill beside his barn. Once, he had heard engines louder than thunder. Once he had flown across battle skies where stars burned and men never came back. But those days were gone. Now his world was quiet until that night. A flash crossed the sky, white and silver, tearing through the clouds like lightning that had lost its way. Ethan stood up, his chair falling backward. It wasn't a meteor. The light moved too straight, too steady. Then it turned, banking sharply, and the sound came low, deep and wrong. It wasn't from Earth. He grabbed his old field binoculars. Out over the hills, he saw the light crash. It hit with a dull boom and a rise of dust that glowed faintly blue. For a long second, nothing moved. Then a line of fire stretched upward. The night fell quiet again. Ethan hesitated only a moment before grabbing his flashlight, rifle, and truck keys. Whatever had fallen wasn't from any Air Force he knew. His curiosity, the same one that once made him a test pilot, burned again. The dirt road twisted like a dry river. 10 miles out, he stopped. The air smelled like ozone and melted metal. The ground shimmered faintly as if the sand itself had been charged with electricity. He left the truck and walked toward the crater. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't even a shape he could name. The craft lay half-buried, its surface smooth and dark like glass that had been alive once. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its side. Through a split in the hull, light pulsed, steady, almost like breathing. Then he saw her. She lay a few feet from the wreck, motionless. The first thought in Ethan's mind was that she was human. The second that she could not be. Her skin had a soft silver bronze tone that caught the starlight. Her hair fell across her face in loose strands the color of moonlight. She wore fragments of armor black, elegant and scarred. One side of her chest plate bore a faint mark, 3 interlocking circles. Ethan didn't recognize it, but instinct told him it was military. He crouched beside her. She was breathing shallow, uneven. A thin cut ran across her forehead, glowing faintly before fading to normal. He touched her wrist gently. Her pulse was fast, but steady. She was alive. Ethan looked back toward the wreck. Flames licked the edges of the metal. If there was fuel ore, whatever it ran, it could explode. He lifted her carefully, surprised at how light she was. She stirred slightly, murmuring something in a language that sounded like liquid metal. The sound made the hair on his neck stand. He carried her to the truck, laid her across the seat, and drove fast back to his cabin. The desert stretched endless and empty behind him, but high above, hidden among stars. Something else moved, a silent shape, watching his headlights fade into the dark. At home, he pushed open the cabin door with his shoulder and laid her gently on the couch. The old oil lamp threw a warm light across her face. She looked peaceful now, almost human, except for her eyes. When she opened them a few minutes later, they were a shade of violet he had never seen on Earth. She sat up fast, its instinct sharp, her hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Ethan raised both palms. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe. You crashed. You're hurt." She stared at him tense, trying to process the words. Her gaze moved over his simple clothes, the cabin walls, the flickering lamp. "This is your shelter?" Her voice was soft, but carried a weight that made each word careful. "Yeah, my home," he said. "Name's Ethan." She tilted her head slightly, repeating it. "Ethan," and she placed a hand against her chest. "Sarai. Warrior of Vela." He frowned. "Vela? Never heard of it." She blinked slowly, confusion mixed with exhaustion. "You should not have it is. Far." Her words broke for a moment. She seemed to listen for something distant. "There are others. They will come." Ethan poured a glass of water and offered it. She hesitated before taking it, examining the cup like an artifact from another age. Her fingers brushed his as she drank. Her touch was warm, almost electric. "Who's coming?" he asked. "Hunters," she whispered. "From my world." The room felt smaller suddenly. Ethan glanced at his radio, an old army set that hadn't worked for years. Hunters. For you? She nodded once. Because I left. Because I know what they plan. Her strength faltered and she leaned back against the couch, closing her eyes. The hum of the desert wind filled the silence. Ethan covered her with a blanket and sat nearby, unsure what to do. He'd seen strange things in his life-worn machines that thought, cities that floated but nothing like this. By morning, she was awake again. The desert sun poured through the window, painting the room gold. Sarai stood by the door, still wearing her broken armor, staring at the sky as if she expected it to fall. You should rest, he said. I cannot. Her tone softened. They will track my vessel. They always find what is theirs. You're not theirs anymore, are you? He asked quietly. Her eyes flicked to him, surprise in them. How can you know that? Because I used to be the same way, he said, belonging to people who thought they owned me. Sarai looked at him a long time before answering. Then you understand what it costs to walk away, he nodded. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying faint echoes from the crash site. Ethan turned on his radio, static, but beneath it a faint rhythmic pulse, not natural. Sarai stiffened. They are close. How close? He asked. She closed her eyes, listening. Too close for this place. Without a word, Ethan grabbed a backpack, filled it with supplies, and handed it to her. Then we move. She studied him with quiet surprise. You help me? Seems you need it, he said simply. You do not know what danger follows me. I've had danger follow me before, he said with a half smile. Didn't like being alone then either. For a moment, something softened in her face, a flicker of emotion, almost a smile, quickly gone. She nodded. Then we go. They left the cabin just as dusk began to rise on the horizon. A group of small black crafts skimmed low across the desert, moving with silent precision. Sarai's eyes narrowed. Scout wings. Dominion units. Ethan frowned. Dominion. My people, she said bitterly. Or what they became. They drove into the hills, hiding beneath rock ridges until night came. As stars filled the sky again, Sarai watched them with a quiet sadness. Your world is young, she said softly. Its skies are honest. Ethan asked, Where I come from, the skies are machines. Every star watched, every ship numbered. She turned to him. You live free. That is why they fear you. Ethan laughed quietly. Never thought anyone feared us. You should, she said. Humanity fights without logic. You survive when you should fall. That makes you dangerous. He looked at her, realizing she wasn't mocking, she was admiring. The night grew colder. They built a small fire between the rocks. For a while, neither spoke. The firelight flickered across Sarai's face, tracing the faint scars along her jaw. She looked young, but there was something ancient in her eyes, like she had seen centuries of war. Why did you come here? He asked finally. Really? She hesitated, staring into the flames. Because your world stands in their path. The Dominion prepares to cleanse it. I came to stop them. Ethan's hand froze halfway to the fire. Cleanse. You mean destroy? Her voice was quiet but firm. They believe humanity will one day rival them. They fear what you might become. Ethan stared into the desert dark. The idea sounded insane, and yet the wreck, the crafts, her armor, it all fit. So you ran? I refused, she corrected. I was a commander. I led the first strike fleet. When I saw the plan, I could not obey. Her eyes met his, clear and steady. I chose exile. I chose your world. He let out a slow breath. Guess you picked quite a landing. Her lips curved faintly. I did not mean to crash. Your atmosphere is unkind. He smiled at that, the first real smile in a long time. For the first time since he left the skies, Ethan felt alive again, not because of the danger, but because someone from another world believed Earth was worth saving above them. Unseen lights moved among the stars, searching, hunting. Sarai glanced up, her face suddenly alert. They found the wreck. It will not be long. Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle resting beside him. Then we better be gone by dawn. She looked at him with quiet respect. You are not afraid? He shrugged. Fear keeps you alive. Courage keeps you human. Her gaze lingered on him a moment longer, and she whispered something in her language soft, almost like a prayer. Ethan didn't understand the words. Somehow he knew what they meant. Before the fire burned out, she said, If we live through this, Ethan Cross, I will tell you why I truly came. It is not only to save your world. Looked at her, puzzled. Then why? She met his eyes, and for the first time, a single tear glimmered against her bronze skin. Because your people once saved mine? Long ago. The wind rose again, carrying the sound of distant engines. Ethan turned toward the horizon where faint blue lights danced against the stars. The hunt had begun, and for the first time in years, Ethan Cross was ready to fly again. The sun rose like fire over the desert, turning the sand into gold and glass. Ethan and Sarai had been on the move all night, driving toward the mountains. The small truck rattled over rocks, its tires spitting dust behind them. The radio on the dashboard was still humming softly static, and then that strange pulse again. It came in steady bursts, too regular to be nature. Sarai glanced at it and frowned. They are tracking us, she said quietly. The signal matches the frequency of their scouts. They know you helped me. Ethan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Then I guess I'm officially wanted by aliens now. Sarai looked out the window. It is not a small crime to aid a Valen deserter. To them, you are already a threat. Ethan smiled dryly. Story of my life. The mountains rose ahead, rugged, sharp, and ancient. He knew these paths better than any map. He had flown over them once, training for war. Now he was hiding in them with a being from another world. They stopped near a canyon where rocks formed a natural wall. Ethan parked the truck under an overhang and covered it with a tarp. We can stay here for a while, he said. There's a cave a bit further up. Used it during training years back? Sarai followed him up the rocky slope. Her movements were graceful but cautious. Her injuries had not fully healed. Still, her eyes scanned every shadow, every sound. She was a warrior, trained, alert, and ready. Inside the cave, Ethan started a small fire using dry wood and an old lighter. Sarai watched him, curious. Your fire is simple, she said softly. On my world, heat comes from core cells. Ethan smiled. Sometimes simple keeps you alive. She looked at the flames dancing in the darkness. It has life, she whispered. Your people build life from little things. He didn't answer, but he understood what she meant. There was something human about fire, about warmth made by hand. After a while, Sarai removed the broken pieces of her armor. Underneath, she wore a flexible suit that shimmered faintly when the light touched it. She examined the damage. The ship's crash broke the core. Without it, I cannot contact the resistance. Resistance? Ethan asked. She hesitated, then nodded. There are some among the Vela who reject the Dominion's rule. They believe conquest has stolen our soul. I was one of them. So you're not just running, Ethan said. You're fighting back. Her violet eyes met his. I was, but alone, I am only a memory. My world believes in power, not truth. Once you disobey, you vanish. Ethan leaned back against the wall. You're not alone anymore. Sarai studied him quietly. Why do you help me, Ethan Cross? You owe me nothing. He looked into the fire. Maybe I'm tired of watching good people lose. The cave fell silent, except for the crackle of the flames. Outside, the desert wind howled softly. For a while, they just sat there. Two strangers from different worlds bound by danger and chance. That night, Sarai dreamed. In her dream, stars burned red, and the Dominion's flag covered worlds like chains. She saw fleets moving hundreds of ships heading toward a small blue planet. She woke suddenly, breathing hard. Ethan was already awake, sitting near the fire, checking his rifle. Nightmare? He asked. Yes, she whispered. A memory of what is coming. He poured her a cup of water. Then tell me what we're facing. Sarai stared into the dark. The Dominion has already entered your system. They send their smaller ships, first spies, scanners. Soon they will send a destroyer. It will burn the sky. Ethan didn't flinch. Then we stop them before that happens. She shook her head slowly. You cannot fight them alone. They have weapons that erase mountains. I've faced impossible odds before, he said quietly. Maybe this time I'll do it with better company. Her lips curved faintly. You talk like a soldier. Used to be one, he said. Now I just try to keep my promises. Sarai watched him for a long moment. You speak with faith, she said. That is rare among my kind. We have lost it, and maybe it's time you found it again, he said. Outside, a low rumble echoed across the desert. Sarai froze. Engines, she whispered. Dominion craft. 3 units, maybe 4. Ethan stood and grabbed his rifle. Then we move now. They left the cave, climbing up through narrow rocks until they reached a ridge. From there, Ethan saw the horizon glowing faintly, blue searchlights cutting across the sand. The alien ships were sleek, sharp, and silent, moving like predators. They're sweeping the area, Sarai said. They must have found the crash. Can they sense life forms? Yes, she said. But the canyon hides us for now. Ethan took a breath. Then we use that. He guided her toward an old military outpost a few miles away. The place had been abandoned after the wars, but Ethan knew it still had a generator and a signal tower. If we can boost your tech through that, he said, maybe you can call your resistance. It's risky, she warned. Once I activate a signal, they will know. We better make it quick, he replied. By dawn, they reached the outpost. The concrete building was cracked and covered in sand, but the equipment still worked after a few adjustments. Ethan reconnected the old power cells, while Sfree opened a small device from her belt, a crystal-like orb with silver veins that pulsed faintly. This is a cum core, she explained. It can reach across systems, but only once before it burns out. Then make it count, he said. She placed the orb inside the transmitter. A soft blue light filled the room. Strange symbols appeared on the screens as the signal extended beyond Earth's atmosphere. Sarai closed her eyes and began to speak in her language. The words sounded like wind and thunder woven together. After a moment, the orb glowed brighter. It is done, she said finally. The message will reach them. Ethan smiled slightly. Good. Now the wall exploded behind them. A blast of blue energy ripped through the room, throwing Ethan to the ground. Dust and sparks filled the air. Sarai pulled him up as another beam cut through the wall. They found us, she shouted. They ran through the narrow hallways as alien drones swooped in through the U.
I window sleek machines.
With spinning wings and glowing sensors. Ethan fired, hitting one square in the core. It dropped, crashing into metal. Sarai's arm lit with a pulse of energy. A blade of light extended from her wrist. She slashed another drone in half. Your aim is good for a primitive, she said between breaths. Ethan grinned. And you're not bad for someone who just met gravity. It burst out onto the roof. 3 Dominion crafts circled overhead. One descended, firing. Ethan pushed Sarai behind a vent as explosions tore the edge of the building. They'll destroy the transmitter, she said. Not if I draw them off, Ethan replied. Ethan, he cut her off. You said your message is sent. That's what matters. Now move. Before she could stop him, he ran toward the edge, jumped into the sand below, and sprinted toward the canyon. The ships turned after him, chasing. He zigzagged through the dunes, firing as he went. The blasts missed him by inches, lighting the ground with blue fire. Sarai watched from the roof, fury and fear in her eyes. Foolish human, she whispered. Then she leaped from the roof, landing hard and rolling before sprinting after him. They regrouped behind a cluster of rocks. Ethan was breathing hard, his rifle smoking. Sarai knelt beside him, her eyes flashing with anger. You risked your life for seconds of distraction. He wiped the dust from his face. It worked, didn't it? Her anger faded into something else, something softer. You are unlike any soldier I have known. Good, he said, smiling weakly. Means I'm doing it right. Above them, the crafts hovered, scanning the ground. Sarai held out her hand, pressing her palm to the sand. A faint hum rose beneath them. The ground shimmered as if alive. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "Calling the ship's memory," she said. "Its fragments still respond to my code." From far away, the wrecked alien craft pulsed once, then again. Suddenly, a wave of energy burst from the desert floor, blinding blue light sweeping across the horizon. The Dominion ships jerked in the air, their systems flickering. "Now," Soraya shouted. Ethan fired at the nearest craft's vent system. The hit ignited it in a burst of flame. The ship spiraled and crashed into the sand. The others retreated, vanishing into the clouds. For a long moment there was silence. The only sound was the wind and the slow beat of Ethan's heart. Sarai sank to the ground beside him. "You have no armor, no enhancements. Yet you fight like you were born for war." Ethan looked at her. "I'm not fighting for war," he said softly. "I'm fighting for home." She stared at him, and for the first time her expression softened completely. "Your people. Perhaps the Dominion was right to fear you." Ethan shook his head. "They should fear what happens when we fight for others, not for ourselves." The desert sky above them was quiet again. But Sarai's message had gone through, and somewhere far beyond the stars, others had heard it that night. As they sat by a small fire near the canyon, Sarai said, "You risked everything for a being you met 2 days ago." "Why?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because you remind me that even in war, we still get to choose who we become." She looked at him through the flickering light. "And what do you choose to become?" He thought for a moment. "Human. Just human." Sarai nodded slowly. "Then maybe humanity will save more than just itself." Above them, unseen by either of them, a distant Dominion warship turned toward Earth, receiving the signal Sarai had sent. The war was far from over, but the universe had just learned one thing it would never forget. Humanity doesn't surrender. It adapts, it fights, and it inspires. And that realization was about to change everything. The morning sun burned gold across the desert, and Ethan felt the heat through his jacket. The night had been long, full of tension and quiet plans. Sarai sat a few feet away, polishing the blade of her wrist weapon. Her violet eyes traced the horizon, alert for any sign of pursuit. The Dominion was clever, relentless. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. "We need to move further north," Sarai said. "The mountains there are higher, rougher. Fewer scouts can reach us." Ethan nodded. "Lead the way." "I'll follow." Her steps were silent but precise as she guided him through narrow passes, rocky ridges, and shallow canyons. Ethan followed, sometimes stumbling over rocks or sliding on loose gravel. Every so often, she would stop, listen, and point out small signals, disturbed sand, shadows, or faint energy traces left by Dominion drones. "You are surprisingly aware of danger," Ethan remarked. Trying to keep his voice light, Sarai glanced at him. "You taught me to survive?" she asked softly. "I didn't teach you anything," he said, smiling slightly. "But I've lived enough to know how to watch, to know when to trust instinct." They walked for hours in silence. Ethan noticed how careful Sarai was with her energy, never running fully, conserving strength for moments that demanded it. She was disciplined, focused, and yet human enough to have a sense of wonder. She paused at a ridge, looking down on a valley below. A small river cut through green brush. "Water," she said. "This place. It is alive." Ethan laughed. "You mean it doesn't look like a battlefield?" "Your life is strange," she said quietly. "On my world, there is no beauty that does not serve a purpose." He shrugged. "Maybe that's why we survive. We fight for what matters, not for what is ordered." Her eyes softened. For a moment, she looked almost at peace. But the wind carried a low hum. Sarai stiffened, her hand moving to her side weapon. "Hunters," she said. "They track not only machines, but life itself. Your kind has something they cannot ignore." Ethan frowned. "And that is?" "You," she said simply. "Your essence, your adaptability, your humanity. They fear it." He looked at her in surprise. So I'm dangerous because I'm human? She nodded. Because humans inspire hope, and hope spreads faster than their fleets. He laughed softly. Then I guess we better spread some hope today. They continued their trek through the valley. The river was shallow but cold. Ethan filled their canteens while Sarai scanned the sky. Do you always carry water this carefully? He asked, impressed by her discipline. Always, she replied. It is precious, and it teaches patience. They stopped at a shaded area near a boulder cluster to rest. Sarai sat on the ground, her energy visibly returning as she meditated briefly, connecting to the pulse of the planet. Ethan watched her, fascinated. She was more than a warrior. She was a strategist, a thinker, and now, in these quiet moments, almost human. You are not from here, yet you understand its rhythm, Ethan said. I learn quickly, she said. And you? Teach without words. He smiled. I just survive. You just follow instinct. She looked at him, her gaze steady. Your kind is remarkable. On my planet, you would be considered weak. Yet here you are stronger than anyone I have met. Funny, Ethan said. I always thought strength was measured by muscle or weapons. No, she said firmly. Strength is measured by will, by the courage to act when fear surrounds you. Humans have it in abundance. He felt a warmth at her words. Perhaps this was why she had come not only to save Earth, but to see its people, to witness the power of humanity in action. The sun rose higher, and the canyon's shadows shrank. Ethan knew they couldn't stay long. Sarai extended her wrist weapon, scanning the horizon. 3 units are near, she said. They move faster than before. Can we outrun them? He asked. Not without a plan, she said. We will use the canyon. She led him to a narrow crevice, barely wide enough for a person. We can funnel them, she explained. They cannot maneuver easily here, and you have terrain advantage. Ethan nodded. Then we do it your way. Hours passed as they set trapped simple rocks and improvised signal disruptors made from broken tech and desert materials. Ethan was amazed at how Sarai adapted quickly, using what she had to create a defensive position. Her intelligence, her skill, and her instinct impressed him more than any aircraft he had ever flown. Why are you helping me like this? She asked suddenly. Because if I don't, I lose more than you, he said simply. She studied him. You could be anyone's soldier, but you choose humanity, he smiled faintly. It's the only choice I ever understood. By evening, the Dominion units appeared above the canyon. Their ships glinted in the dying sunlight, and their shadows stretched long across the desert floor. Ethan crouched behind a boulder, rifle ready. Sarai stood nearby, calm, her wrist weapon pulsing faintly. They will strike soon, she whispered. We cannot fail. Then we don't, Ethan said. The first unit swooped down, firing blue energy beams. Ethan fired back, aiming carefully at engines and weak points. Sarai moved silently, using energy pulses from her wrist weapon to disable drone-like machines. They fought as a team, perfectly in sync despite only knowing each other for a short time. One ship spiraled into a rock wall, another crashed into the canyon side. Yet more approached, faster, smarter, and relentless. We must push forward, Sarai said. The canyon ends near the plateau. From there, we can escape into higher mountains. Ethan nodded, reloading. Lead the way. They ran through the canyon, dodging fire and debris. Ethan noticed the intelligence of the Dominion ships. They adjusted to traps and attacks, but Sarai was faster, smarter. Anticipating their moves. You are remarkable, said as he fired at a pursuing drone. And you are reckless, she replied with a small smile. Slicing a drone in half mid-flight, they reached the plateau just as the last sun disappeared behind the mountains. The Dominion ships hovered at the edge, scanning. Sarai touched a device on her belt, sending a faint signal into the sky. What is that? Ethan asked. A marker, she replied. It will confuse them temporarily, buy us minutes. Minutes stretched into hours. The Dominion fleet hesitated, unsure of the terrain. Ethan and Sarai used the time to climb higher into the mountains. Navigating narrow passes and steep cliffs, During the climb, Ethan noticed something different in her. The fear, the anger, the tension, everything was still there. But now a quiet determination shone through. She was more than a warrior. She was hope in motion. "You believe in humans," she said suddenly. Ethan shrugged. "I believe in what humans can do when we refuse to give up. That's all anyone really needs." Sira smiled faintly. "Then your people are more than survivors. You are legends in the making." Ethan laughed softly. "Let's hope the Dominion doesn't get a chance to test that theory." Night fell over the mountains. The stars above were clear, infinite, and beautiful. Ethan and Sarai rested in a small alcove, hidden from sight. "They will come again," Sarai said. "Larger ships, faster, smarter." "Then we fight again," Ethan replied. She studied him. "Your courage. It is unlike anything I have seen. Even the strongest among my kind would hesitate here." "I've learned to act," he said quietly, "even when it seems impossible." They shared a long silence, broken only by the wind. For a moment, the bond between them grew, just as allies, but as two beings from different worlds united by courage, hope, and trust. Sarai reached out, resting her hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You remind me that even in darkness light exists. That is why I came. Not only to save your world, but to see if your kind is worth saving." Ethan looked at her. "We always are." Her violet eyes softened. "Then maybe humanity will not fall, after all." Suddenly, the distant sky lit with blue flares. The Dominion had found them again. "Time to move," Sarai said, standing. "This battle is far from over." Ethan grabbed his rifle. "Then let's show them what humans can do." They moved silently along the mountain ridges. Ethan watched as Sarai scanned the horizon, calculating the next move, her eyes sharp and precise. Her warrior instincts were unmatched. Yet now, side by side, Ethan realized something incredible. She had learned to trust him. Not as a human, not as a soldier, but as a friend, a comrade, a partner. The Dominion ships descended, slower now, careful. They knew the terrain was difficult. Ethan and Sarai had the advantage. "Remember," Sarai said, "the goal is survival, not revenge." Ethan nodded. "Survive first. Then we fight smart." The two of them waited, breathing steady, hearts aligned with purpose. As the ships moved closer, Ethan thought of everything he had fought for his life, his planet, and now this unexpected alliance with a being from the stars. The battle would come, and when it did, humanity would not be alone. The stars were sharp points of light over the desert mountains, cold and unfeeling. Ethan Cross and Sarai paused on a ridge, catching their breath. Behind them, the Dominion scouts had retreated, but only temporarily. The main fleet would arrive soon, larger, more powerful, and relentless. "We cannot outrun them forever," Sarai said. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon, calculating every possible approach. "The plateau ahead offers high ground. From there, we can make a stand." Ethan tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we take it. We fight where we have the advantage." She nodded. "Good, but it will not be easy. The Dominion strikes with precision. One mistake, and it will end." Ethan gave a small smile. "I've faced impossible odds before. I'm human. That's my edge." Sarai studied him for a moment, a faint hint of admiration in her gaze. "Your courage is unusual, even inspiring." They moved swiftly, silently, climbing the rocky slope to the plateau. The desert wind was harsh, but it carried no sound of approaching ship set. Both knew the quiet was only temporary. "Once we reach the plateau," Sarai said, "we use the terrain. The canyon walls, the cliffs, they will hinder the fleet. And we have the advantage of surprise." Ethan nodded. "Then let's make them learn that humanity fights differently." The plateau opened into a vast space of jagged rock formations and narrow passes. Ethan and Sarai took positions behind large boulders, preparing traps from the rocks, sand, and Sarai's alien devices. The transmitter she had activated earlier continued to pulse faintly, sending a signal that confused the Dominion fleet. "Ready?" Sarai asked. Ethan checked his rifle. "Ready? From above, the Dominion fleet appeared, massive ships glinting in the sunlight, their engines humming like a swarm of mechanical predators. The largest of them hovered over the plateau, sending drones to scout the terrain. "They are cautious," Sci-Fi said. "They know something is here." "It should be," Ethan replied. "They have no idea who they're up against." The first wave of drones descended, firing energy beams. Ethan dodged behind a rock, returning fire with precise shots aimed at engines and control nodes. Sci-Fi moved with lethal grace, her wrist blades slicing drones in half before they could reach cover. "This is incredible," Ethan muttered. "You're like a storm." "And you are." "Reckless," Sci-Fi said, a small smile flickering as she deflected a blast with her energy shield. They fought as one human and alien, instinct and strategy combined. Every move they made disrupted the Dominion formation. The drones fell faster than replacements could arrive. Above them, the largest ship began descending. Ethan noticed the craft's engines thrumming as if alive. "That's their main vessel," Sci-Fi said. "We cannot destroy it with weapons alone." "Then we do it another way," Ethan replied. "We use our brains, not just firepower." They retreated into a narrow canyon, the plateau providing cover. Sci-Fi tapped a device on her belt, sending a signal to the wrecked ship in the desert below. The craft pulsed once, then responded to her commands. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked. "I am linking it to the transmitter," Sci-Fi explained. "The energy can overload their ship systems, but it will take precision and courage." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." "It is," she admitted, "but necessary. The Dominion cannot know what we plan." They moved quickly, avoiding drones and energy beams, until they reached a vantage point overlooking the plateau. From here, they could see the main ship in all its massive glory. "Engines spinning and weapons ready." "Ethan," Sci-Fi said, "I need you to pilot this plan. I can provide the energy link, but the timing, it must be perfect." He nodded, understanding the risk. "Then, let's do it." Sci-Fi extended her wrist device, connecting to the wrecked craft's core. The ship hummed to life, energy spreading through its systems, responding to her commands. Ethan aimed his rifle at the approaching drones, ready to provide cover. The Dominion ship descended, unaware of the trap being prepared beneath it. Ethan and Sci-Fi exchanged a glance, no words, only understanding now. Sci-Fi whispered. Ethan activated the transmitter, sending a pulse through the desert. The wrecked craft responded, beams of energy shooting upward like a lightning storm. The Dominion ship faltered, shields flickering. Ethan fired at the control vents, precisely hitting weak points. The largest drone guarding the ship spiraled into the ground, followed by smaller units. "Keep it steady," Sci-Fi said, her voice tense. The Dominion ship struggled, engines burning blue flames as it tried to maneuver. Ethan guided the energy pulses, keeping the ship destabilized. Sci-Fi's wrist device glowed brighter with every second, linking more power into the system. "Almost there," she whispered. Suddenly, the Dominion captain realized the attack. The ship adjusted, aiming weapons directly at their position. Ethan fired relentlessly, hitting key systems, while Sci-Fi amplified the energy surge. A massive beam erupted from the desert wreck, striking the Dominion ship. It shuddered violently. Sparks flew from its engines. Systems failed one by one. Ethan and Sci-Fi watched as the once dominant vessel fell, spiraling toward the desert below. They had done it. For a moment, silence reigned over the plateau. The wind carried the faint scent of ozone and burnt metal. Ethan lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. Sci-Fi collapsed onto the ground beside him, exhausted but victorious. "You did it," she said softly. "Both of you did it," Ethan corrected, smiling. "You're not just an alien warrior. You're amazing." Her violet eyes softened. "And you are more than I imagined. Brave, clever, persistent, human." Ethan chuckled. "We make a good team, perhaps," she said quietly. "Perhaps humanity is worth the effort." They sat there, looking out over the desert. The Dominion fleet had retreated, broken and confused. The message Sci-Fi sent had reached other resistance members across the stars, and backup was already on the way. For now, Earth was safe. Ethan noticed her gaze linger on the horizon, thoughtful. "Will they come back?" he asked. "They always do," Sci-Fi said. "But now we are ready. And now they will think twice before underestimating humans." Night fell, painting the plateau in deep blue and silver. Ethan and Sci-Fi made a small camp, exhausted but alert. They ate simple rations and shared stories quietly. Sci-Fi told him about her world, the ships, the fleets, the rigid control of the Dominion. Ethan shared memories of Earth deserts, mountains, the resilience of people who survived wars without losing hope. "You humans," she said, smiling faintly. "You fight not because of orders, not because of conquest, but because you care." That is something we lost long ago," Ethan shrugged. "Maybe that's why we survive." Sci-Fi looked at him with admiration. "You remind me that even in darkness, light exists. And that is why I came, not just to save your world, but to see if your kind is truly worth saving." Felt a warmth in his chest. "Then I guess we both found what we were looking for." Her lips curved faintly. Perhaps they watched the stars, silent now. The desert stretched endlessly, quiet but alive with possibility. Ethan felt a rare peace, knowing that for the first time in years, his choices mattered beyond himself. Sci-Fi had brought danger, yes, but also perspective, hope, and the chance to see humanity reflected through the eyes of another world. The next morning, they prepared to leave the plateau. The desert below stretched wide and untamed. Sci-Fi connected one last time to the wrecked craft, sending a confirmation signal to the distant resistance fleet. "They will come soon," she said. "And when they do, humanity will not fight alone." Ethan glanced at her. Then we moved together, side by side. Her hand brushed as briefly a gesture of trust, of respect, and of a bond formed in the fires of battle. She nodded. Side by side, the two of them began their descent into the desert, careful and swift. The mountains hid them for now, but they both knew the Dominion would return eventually. And when it did, they would meet it with courage, intelligence, and the unshakable determination of humanity united with hope. As they walked, Ethan looked at her. "Sci-Fi, after everything, why did you choose me?" Her violet eyes met his, unwavering. "Because you reminded me of what humans truly are. Not just survivors, not just fighters, but beings who can inspire even those who have seen countless wars." "I guess we both learned something," yes, she said softly. "I learned that humanity is worth protecting. And you. You learned that even across the stars, courage and hope matter." They reached a ridge overlooking the desert. Dawn was breaking, casting a golden glow across sand and rock. The sky seemed endless, filled with promise. Above, distant stars twinkled, as if cheering silently. Ethan realized that Earth was not alone, not truly. With allies across the universe, humanity's fight was only beginning. But now, it had a warrior from another world who believed in them just as much as he believed in humanity. Sci-Fi turned to him. "Ethan Cross, your world will survive. And perhaps together, we will change the universe." He laughed softly. "Then let's get to work." And with that, the two of them disappeared into the desert, ready for the challenges ahead, united by trust, courage, and the unbreakable bond of two worlds meeting in hope.